evening, and welcome back to the Box Box Podcast. I'm your host, Andy, and we're joined with some fresh faces this week. Talking about a change of looks around the place. I'm joined with Liam, Theo, and Mike. Lads, how are you tonight?
All good, thanks.
Good, very well, thank you.
Yeah, good. Thanks for having us on.
It's always great when we've had a bit of a break from watching Newcastle.
Of course.
But we've got plenty to delve into tonight. There's a lot going on in the world of football. Obviously, we've got the England games coming up, and are we all really excited to watch us play Albania and San Marino? Let us know what you're feeling for the England games coming up. The comment sections are down below. Let us know. Get your questions in. But yeah, England going in. We're looking strong in qualifying. Look, it's more or less guaranteed we're gonna qualify. But the England squad in full. We've got Sam Johnson, Pickford, and Aaron Ramsdale as our goalkeepers. We've got Trent, Chilwell, Cody, Reece James, Tyrone Mings, Harry Maguire. Luke Shaw is a maybe at the minute. John Stones and Kyle Walker at the back. Jude Bellingham, Jordan Henderson, Mason Mount, Declan Rice, and Calvin Phillips in midfield. And then our forwards, we've got Tammy Abraham, Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, Harry Kane, Bukayo Saka, Emil Smith-Rowe, and Raheem Sterling. Liam, what's your first thoughts on that squad?
Yeah, I think it's just business as usual for the England squad. Just looking there, I think we are in a sort of phase now with England where we are going to sort of see just the same squads. We've had the sort of young guns coming up, and the likes of Jude Bellingham's. We've got Emil Smith-Rowe in that lineup now. Obviously, he's been in great form, as you all know, Theo. Like I said, yeah, I think it's just the time now where for the next 6 months, maybe 18 months, we're going to have the sort of just same England squads, bar any injuries. But once again, it's a really strong squad, and it's going to be an absolute wipeout for these next couple of games.
Yeah, I mean, when these squads come out, they always cause a little bit of debate. Everyone has the thoughts about who should be in, who shouldn't be. Mike, for you, is there anyone there that you think should be in?
I think for me, the only position that really looks a bit dodgy when you look at the depth is probably Connor Cody for me and Tyrone Mings. Tyrone Mings obviously was dropped for Villa the other day, and so I think players like Fikayo Tomori and Ben White, who are there and thereabouts, could probably feel a little bit aggrieved. But I think that's only at a push, really. It's pretty much as you'd expect, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Mings getting dropped by Villa. They've got the likes of Courtney Hause and Konza, who've both been pretty decent form and probably been better than Mings this season, but still no call up for them. Theo, your Arsenal boys, they're getting back in there, and it seems there's more and more creeping in at the minute. How happy are you to see the likes of Ramsdale, Saka, and then Emil Smith-Rowe getting his call up now as well?
Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted for them. My only problem with these international breaks is that, when the team's having a bit of a run and then it just stops. And England is great, but club football, it just ruins it for me personally, especially when these guys are on form and then if they get injured or whatever, and then we've got a serious problem. But that aside, I'm so happy that Smith-Rowe got the call up yesterday. He's been scoring pretty much every game for the last couple of weeks. He's, matured in that aspect of his game. I remember a couple of weeks ago, he was saying to Gary Neville and Carragher that, I'm working really hard to add goals into my game. And he is doing that. So he fully deserves to be in that team. But as you were saying, you do sort of see the same faces. And it's good in one sense because this team can gel for the World Cup, which is going to come up. But at the same time, it's nice to see some few new faces who are on form right now.
Yeah, I think it's so good to see so many young players in there, and then there's obviously some proper model professionals are in that squad as well. But there is one player, I think, and might be controversial to some. He hasn't had a good season so far this season. Harry Kane, yes, he's England's wonder boy, but does he deserve on current form to be in that squad, do you think, Liam?
No, I think he'd still be in the England squad if he was in, the worst form of his life. He is England's striker. He's England's, either number 9, number 10, however you'd want to play him, whatever number you give him. He's just the sort of model of an England striker. I think even when you look at when back in the day when Alan Shearer would have poor form, he'd probably still get picked for England, wouldn't he? So, I'm not surprised that he's still in the lineup, even with his poor form.
Do you think Southgate backs him, starts him for the Albania game? Do you think?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think these next couple of games, if he was to get dropped, are crucial for him in terms of England's sense. You know, two teams where you would probably be scoring a couple of goals each game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, being lucky boy to start, I think Tammy Abraham's been fantastic at Roma. I think he's exactly the kind of striker that Mourinho likes to have up top. We'll move on to the Albania game because that's the first one coming up. Mike, for you, what do you want to see in that game the most from England?
I think you just want them to get the job done at this point, don't you? The 4 points off guaranteed qualification. So I think the result probably matters more than the performance, but realistically, they're there anyway. If you look, San Marino, we're ahead of Poland on goal difference anyway, so you'd expect us to put a few past San Marino, but maybe just I wouldn't mind seeing Smith Rowe get a game and see, try and look for something to build on going towards Qatar. So sort that midfield out, whether that's Bellingham, Rice, Mount, or where do you fit in Grealish and Foden, for example. So maybe just starting to get some ideas together towards what will be the World Cup next winter.
Yeah, you mentioned Sterling there as well. Sterling, of course, we knew Euros was probably our best player. He was fantastic, but since we've came into the season, Pep just hasn't been involved in him, and we've already seen Southgate hasn't picked Sancho because Sancho hasn't been getting the minutes at United. Theo, do you think Sterling could be under threat for the next call-up if things don't improve at City, that he might miss out in the next one?
I'm sure he's thinking about it. He came out recently, being interviewed, asking, how do you feel about your lack of playing time? And he says, as a footballer, you want to play and working hard, blah, blah, blah. And Pep was asked about it. And he said, well, no one is guaranteed a place. But at the same time, you're not playing Sterling. You're playing other players. So perhaps his position is in threat. But at the same time, like some of the other guys were saying, you're asking him about Harry Kane. It's sort of like Danny Welbeck a couple of years ago. He would still get into that team anyway because the manager knew he was going to do a job every time he played, regardless. So I think it's similar to Harry Kane and probably Sterling as well. So I think probably now he's going to be fine because he's demonstrated he can do it consistently, and we saw in the Euros. So maybe for now he's fine, but maybe it's that point next year you're thinking, what's going to happen?
Well, I mean, in that position as well, we've got so much depth. I mean, with Foden tends to play more on the wing now than being a number 10. You've got Smith Rowe, who has tended to play on the wing in the last couple of games for Arsenal. You've got Saka, who's amazing. Sancho, who's out the squad at the minute, but if he gets anywhere near his Dortmund form, also unbelievable. Rashford normally pulls in a good performance for England when he's fully fit. Liam, do you think? How do you feel on the current competition in the England side? I think it's, quite frankly, I think it's the best it's ever been.
Yeah, I completely agree. You talk about the golden generation that happened. I can't really remember that personally, but I feel like for the time that we're living in now, this is probably the golden generation. Of course, coming hot off a Euro final, some really, really good young product of the team. You look at the likes of Emile Smith-Rowe, Jude Bellingham, who has literally just in the past couple of months only just turned 18. A lot of these players have got fantastic careers ahead of them, and I'd be very, very surprised if half of them were in the squads for the next 10 years or so.
Yeah, you mentioned the golden generation, and they were expected to win things. But a lot of the problems have came out now from those former members of that golden generation, like John Terry, Rio Ferdinand, and their problem was that they never clicked together. They all stayed in their separate cliques, like Man United lads stayed with the Man United lads, Chelsea with Chelsea. You watch, I tend to watch when the players arrive at St George's Park. You see they're all mates, and that's why I think the golden generation was expected to win things. But this generation will win things. I think just purely because they're a team. We'll go around the room. We'll get a couple of score predictions. Mike,
we'll go 3-0 England for the Albania game. I don't think I can name more than 3 Albania.
Me either. Theo,
3-0 with a Smith Rowe last minute goal.
Would like to say it. Liam.
I'm going to say 5-0. Just because, it could happen. I know you said 5-0 Newcastle in the last one, but maybe a bit more realistic. 5-0 England. Let's say Harry Kane to get a hat-trick. He'll go back into form. Then for Theo's sake, Smith Rowe will get a brace.
Liam, man, I'm meant to be a reputable host here, and you're giving us in like that.
I'm dragging your name through the mud here.
On our Behind the Leasers podcast, I got very confident behind us having a new manager bounce and said 5-0 Newcastle for our next game against Brentford. Won't happen, but it's going to have spirits. But I agree. I think it will be around the 5-0 mark. I'm hoping to see. One player I am really looking forward to watch is Jude Bellingham. He's just an absolutely incredible talent, and like you said, he's only just turned 18. To think the trajectory that his career's on now is insane. And then San Marino. San Marino is your game where you're guaranteed goals. It's just they're there for just a bit of a laugh, aren't they, San Marino? Really, you want them to score. You know what I mean? You don't. I kind of like, yes, I support England, but when you watch San Marino, you're like, go on, lads. Like, I mean, they've got the local plumber in goal, the head teachers, the left back. It's a funny one. Yeah. It literally is. It's almost like watching Newcastle, to be honest. Well, Steve Bruce's Newcastle, anyway. We'll do a quick score prediction for that one as well. I have a feeling the scores will be a little bit higher for this one. Mike, what do you think for San Marino?
0-0. I'm going to go for San Marino. I'll go at 6-0 England. It's got to be.
Theo?
I'm feeling a 5-0.
5. Liam?
I'm going to say 4-1. Just because we always like to back an underdog. I think it'll go 1-0 England, and San Marino will pull one back. Maybe end of the first half.
I hope there's no Albanians watching for you.
San Marino, obviously a country that I'd love to do well. I'd love to see them in the major tournament one day, but for now, it's just not happening for them, is it? I've just googled their squad there, and I don't know any of the players. But yeah, I'll say 4-1 to England.
It's like, who did we play in the last one? The right back was trying to keep up with Sancho. Was he like 40 odd or something? The full back, and he's pulled his muscle trying to keep up with Sancho. But I think we've got through England. We've mentioned everything there. Obviously, the only missing ones were missed out on there. Mason Mount is out for a dental problem with his an infected wisdom tooth, and I mean we've all been there with wisdom teeth. The horrible. I feel for him. Luke Shaw came off against Man United with concussion, so he's been checked up on. We'll see if he comes in, and then I'm not too sure what the crack is with Rashford, but he's floating about, maybe joining the squad. But yeah, we'll move on. This weekend, we lost another 2 Premier League managers, brings the total up to 5 now this season. And I think some of them, with Dean Smith, I know Villa fans were maybe caught a bit off guard yesterday. They were complaining about how they've been playing recently. But Daniel Farke, I think everyone saw that coming with how Norwich have played. I mean, if you're below Newcastle United at this point in the league, you're doing something wrong. Mike, were you surprised by Dean Smith going?
I was. I think a big difference between this season and last season is obviously the fact that the fans are in the stadium, and I think that you've seen the effect of that with Nuno Espirito Santo and now Dean Smith, because obviously losing 5 on the bounce is always going to affect the fan base, and no one really, enjoys that, and you might be used to it as Newcastle fans, but it usually go well. I had to get one in there before you won them. But yeah, it was a bit of a surprise, but I think when the fans are reacting that angle, obviously towards the players, but I think you're not going to sack the whole squad, are you? So the next easiest thing to do is sack the manager, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a problem, like you mentioned, when you bring in so many new players as well. Obviously, they've tried to replace Grealish, and someone with that much talent is hard to replace, and it's been a shame that the likes of Leon Bailey hasn't had the chance to really flourish in that Villa squad at the minute. Theo, we'll come to you, because I can imagine you would love to talk about Tottenham and Nuno's feelings. Obviously, they've brought in their new man Conte, who won the league with Chelsea, and do you think he'll be able to change things around at Tottenham and maybe get them back up and running again?
It's a difficult one because I watched their game on the weekend and obviously they didn't win, which is obviously good news for me. But in the long term, I don't know if he's got the players to do what he wants to do, because at the end of the day, it's the same players. I've watched almost every Spurs team this season, and they're very defensive. And sometimes they'll play five at the back, or they'll play lots of defensive players in the middle and have no creativity whatsoever. If he can fix that problem, then they're going to be a problem. But the thing I always complain about is Harry Kane dropping in, and when he's supposed to be the striker and in the box, whether getting tap-ins or doing something magical. And if he's so deep in the pitch, he's not going to cause anyone problems. So if Conte can fix that, then there's a real problem for everyone else in that top half of the table. But I don't think it's going to happen overnight, because the players he probably wants, he probably doesn't have. And maybe Spurs, Levy has promised him that he can have what he wants, but who knows? Only time will tell, I guess.
Like you said, I 100% agree with what you've said about Harry Kane there. I think we all got frustrated in the Euros with how deep he was playing. There's just no need for him to be there when the talent that's in that squad. And with Tottenham's recruitment policy, it's one I've never really got. They tend to try and take too many risks, I think, on players. But Liam, will quickly talk about Kane, because I feel like what Harry Kane needs right now is what Shearer got when Bobby Robson came to the club. He just needs someone to tell him to stick on the last man, stay on your side so you can just go when the ball comes. Because right now he's not doing that. And probably because of the quality of Tottenham's side, he's having to just stand, come deeper, and then getting caught not being where he needs to be in front of the goal and putting the ball on the back of the net. Do you think Kane can have a change around this season and pick up his form, or do you think he could have been doing this on purpose to maybe bring his value down and look for a move away?
So I think there's always going to be rumours about what's going to happen with Harry Kane at the end of the season, even in January. But I think just the way that managers have been playing, tactically for Tottenham recently, Nuno, Mourinho, even Ryan Mason at times, very sort of defensive, very much on the back foot. And, as a result of that, as we mentioned before, players like Harry Kane are going to have to drop a little bit deeper because of that. And it's not really helped him. He doesn't have the best pace in the world, but he does like getting behind the defenders. And like you said, Alan Shearer had the likes of Bobby Robson around him just to help him that little bit more. Maybe Conte could be a bit of a better man manager for him. He's not spoken a lot on Harry Kane, but I know he'll definitely sort of know his potential. He'll know what he does. So I'd like to see him pick his form up, but I think he will still have an eye on what could possibly be next for him. But I know he has come out and said, it is something that makes him quite happy seeing that Antonio Conte is there. So you never know. It might be quite good for Spurs, and it might be good for Harry Kane as well.
Yeah, I mean, Lukaku, look, we all know Lukaku's a great striker, but when he worked with Conte at Inter, just changed him into a totally different player. Lukaku was fantastic last season. Mike, we'll come to you next, because you've got Rafa at the helm at the minute, and me and Liam are very familiar with Rafa's style of playing. Liam mentioned before, you like some Mourinho that like to play these more defensive tactics. I know Rafa tends to like a 4-2-3-1 with the two holding midfielders very much in front of the defence. How are you currently feeling about Everton under Rafa?
So I think it's a tough one, because obviously we had a really good start and then it's just dropped off since then. I think we've been unfortunate to an extent in the fact that the spine of the team, if you look at Yerry Mina, Decore and Calvert-Lewin, have been missing. Richarlison's only just come back from 6 or 7 games out as well. So he's been hamstrung to an extent. I think he's quite tactically stubborn probably. So he had a 4-4-2 which worked at the start of the season, and then Decore got injured, and trying to replace Decore's legs with anybody else in that squad is just a recipe for disaster. So that Watford game was a debacle, and then the first half against Wolves was embarrassing. But we've sort of gone to more of that 4-2-3-1 now, which I think makes a lot of sense. So I don't think the fans are against him or particularly on board with him necessarily. It's just sort of that it's a period of neutrality, I think, where results will define fan sentiment, really.
Yeah, when I saw the news that Rafa was going to Hughes, I got very much the same kind of feeling when Rafa went to Chelsea. But their fans absolutely hounded him, and I'm sure he's getting a chance at fat Spanish waiter every week. Which we loved Rafa. I mean, there was nothing better than when Newcastle somehow won, and then Rafa would take his glasses off and just slide them into his top pocket. It was brilliant. But I have no doubts that he'll do something with Everton. I think Everton was the right project for him, where you are at the minute with the new ground coming and how your academy works. Basically, I've got a mate from up here who supports Everton. I said when he's brought him in, Everton has everything to give to Rafa that Rafa wanted from Newcastle when he was with us. Rafa wanted to be able to bring from the bottom, and didn't get the finance. I mean, if you've seen photos of our training ground, there's players having ice baths and wheelie bins. It's Amanda Staveley absolutely ripped the training ground when she first came in. Theo, obviously, no one's ever safe in the Premier League manager wise. We've seen 5 games have totally changed Dean Smith's career, and he's gone now. Who do you think maybe might be the next to bite the bullet and be sacked?
Oh, that's a good question. Who's next to go? Oh, goodness me. I was going to say Ole, but
I don't think he will.
I don't think he will either now, because the board have backed him. I spent the weekend listening to some of these big guys who are on YouTube who support Man United. And I remember that weekend, not last weekend, the weekend before when they lost. And they were like, he's going to go, he's going to go. And they even had like people who are deep in the club saying, oh, he's definitely going to go. And he's still there. So I would have said he's the next person to go. But if he goes, who are they going to bring in? They have spent so much money on the players they've got at this point to get a new manager. I don't know how it's going to change unless he brings in a completely new system. So he would have been my first person to go. But I don't know who's after that, because as you say, football can change. Only Arsenal fans were calling for Arteta to go not that long ago, until he turned it around in September. So anything can happen. I have no idea. If a team goes on a streak of losing 5 games, they could be like Villa, and then you never know, their manager's gone.
I did a piece for local TV yesterday, and obviously did the local one for Eddie Howe coming, but the national one was asking maybe about which managers might go next, and I had an interesting one about Claudio Ranieri. I know he's only just came into Watford, but Watford are notorious for just getting rid of managers like they're nothing. So he could go. Liam, have you got any ideas who you might think go next?
I'm just looking at the table, and I must say, after maybe a bit of a coup in the Premier League for these managers, maybe just now a few of these jobs might just be safe. I think maybe the closest person to getting sacked would have been Ole, and then next would have been Ralph Hasenhüttl, who's actually a target for Norwich as well. Yeah. So he was in like the 3 who were shortlisted. But I think maybe Ralph Hasenhüttl could be next, depending on how sort of this next sort of half of the season goes. But for now, I think a fair few of these managerial jobs are safe. Maybe you look at Marcelo Bielsa, but he's got a few months left on his contract. Obviously, his contract's up at the end of the season. They might just wait until the end of the season, see where Leeds finish. But
you can't sack Bielsa at Leeds, though, can you?
I don't think you can. No, I feel like Leeds have got their sort of philosophies, and Bielsa really fits their philosophy. So, I mean, if he was sacked, then there'd be a massive uproar from the fans. But at the minute, I think there might just be a few people that are safe at the moment.
Here's a controversy. What about Eddie Howe?
He hasn't even started yet.
give me 3 weeks and then I'll tell you.
I mean, give it 3 weeks and I'm sure Shelby will be hoping he's gone after he's ragged. Honestly, the club put out a couple of clips today of Eddie taking his first training session, and one thing he's told them is when the ball's like moving, you've got to move. Imagine telling a footballer that you've got to move on a football pitch. I mean, I don't know if you've seen much of us play this season. We haven't been on telly that much, but we were against Brighton. And honestly, the contrast between our first half and the second half against Brighton, you've got Maximin, who's a great talent, but he comes forward, he's trying to take on 5 players, and then there's no one up front with him.
I watched that
It's,
game.
yeah, it's just
yeah.
Christ,
I just want to add as well in that training session. I think, you know, obviously I've not seen a lot of the training sessions that Steve Bruce took or what Graham Jones took, but
I was going to say I don't think he took many of them, mate. He was on holiday in Portugal most of the time.
Yeah. I've got this feeling that, you know, when Steve Bruce had a problem with something in training, he'd just berate the players. But Eddie Howe, he'd say something, and there was a specific clip where he went, "It's not a criticism, it's just a new way of training." And I think that's the sort of outlook that we need to have in these next couple of weeks, especially because it's going to be really, you know, rock solid training for these next couple of weeks for the players who aren't on international duty. You know, obviously looking forward to the Brentford game and beyond.
Oh, that's another one actually. They're not on form either.
No, but they start the season well. So I think the start of the season really quite saved Thomas Frank. And once again, I think Brentford have got their philosophies as well, just like Leeds. So if they got rid of Thomas Frank, then there would also be a bit of an uproar. But they'll be fine this season. I don't think they'll go down or sack it in.
That'd be great when we take Tony back off them in January.
Oh yeah. So any money at him for Ivan Toney, it's completely fine.
But Liam, you've made an excellent segue anyway on our next topic, mentioning the international breaks. Now, international breaks, obviously not every player from every team gets called up. In Newcastle's case, I think there's only about 3 or 4 of our players are international players as well. Other teams like Liverpool and, you know, Arsenal, they usually have quite a few players going up there. Everton with the likes of Richarlison when he's fit. And what do you think of players just going on holidays and stuff and taking breaks while international breaks are on when they could be in training, Mike?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I think you look throughout the squad of a lot of Premier League teams, and even the ones who aren't necessarily playing for the full internationals, you'll have quite a few under 21s and maybe a few under 19s and things like that. So they do go away and play, and it's such a full schedule when you look at it. Richarlison, you mentioned, is a particularly evidence example, but he played in the Copa America in the summer and then went straight to the Olympics, had 1 week off and started playing for Everton again. So when you factor that into the fact that with COVID restrictions, a lot of players can't get home to see family and friends, I think giving someone a week off when other players, it's not like it used to be the way they just go to the pub for a week. You know, it's quite a regimented training schedule while we're away. So I personally don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I think this is the whole problem, isn't it? That the game calendars are getting so blocked up now. And I mean, Theo will come to you on this because it's your former man and legendary manager of stupid, ridiculously long coats who's coming about, and he's just doing it. Well, he's doing my head in at the minute with this World Cup crack of we're having a World Cup every 2 years. What would you think about that? Of a possibility of that maybe happening?
As in players having a break on a holiday?
No, the World Cup every 2 years as well. Well, they're having a break and then a World Cup added on top of that as well.
Okay, well, I'll start with the first one about having a break. As Mike was saying, I was actually going to make that point. A lot of the players, even in the Premier League, they end up going to play for under 21s or under 19s, especially most of them are very talented anyway. So if they're not in the first team, they're playing junior levels. So for the ones who are not, I think it's better for them to stay in training. It probably is a lighter training because there's less people around. So I don't think, jetting off to Dubai and whatever is good for them. We had a problem with Willian last year. He's not an under 21 player, but he jetted off to Dubai and God knows what he was doing there. So I don't think it sends the right message. I don't know if you guys have seen apparently these 10 rules Xavi has put in place at Barcelona. And one of them is you're not allowed to go on holiday during season. And if you do need to go somewhere, you have to get permission from me, first of all. And I think it sets a culture because people think they can get away with things and maybe not perform to the best of their ability. I don't know. So I do think it's important for them to stay. And on the second point about World Cups, every 2 years, I think we've touched on this before. It does make, these schedules so long. Just to cite an example, Arsenal women's, for example, some of their players were playing in the Olympics, so they went to Tokyo this summer, and then they were having to play Champions League qualifiers, I think, straight after the back of that, and then the league started straight after that as well. So they've basically had no breaks whatsoever, and it's now November. And just imagine the men's game as well. I think it's exactly the same. So I don't agree with the 2 years personally.
Yeah. So it's not only the players that are taking breaks during the international break. Man United have just lost to the biggest rivals again. Man City 2-0, got absolutely ran rings round, got made to look like schoolboys, let's be honest. But Ollie's gone home to see his family in Norway. Liam, we had the same problem in August. We hadn't won a game then, and I mean, we still haven't won a game now. Steve Bruce decides to use the international break that goes into at the start of September to take himself a nice little break away to Portugal, I believe. So, what do you think about managers just going off on one and having a lovely break during international break as well?
Yeah, I mean, I can't even believe we're having to talk about it. You know, it just sounds wrong. It is wrong. You know, I can understand a day off or a day or two off whilst there's an international break. That's fine. You know, family emergency, whatever. I don't think Ole's little getaway was a family emergency. I think, like you said, he's just spending a little bit of time with the family. That's what winter breaks are for. That's what, you know, the off season's for. That's what, you know, the few weeks that you get before pre-season's for, to spend your time with your family, things like that. I sound like Roy Keane here. Just, you know, especially when you're in such bad form, and, you know, maybe not on Ollie's sake this time, but when your job's on the line, you really need to be focusing on how to improve on the pitch rather than, you know, worrying about what's off the pitch, you know, at that point of time. With Steve Bruce, I thought it was absolutely absurd because, you know, he's jetting off for a week on his own. You know, I think Adam said that, you know, there was a family wedding or something like that. But, you know, weddings come and go. You know, whatever. You know, go to the anniversary party next year.
We haven't won a game, Steve.
I think for a Newcastle point of view, it's a lot more serious. And I know, obviously, Ollie's the manager of Man United, and he's just lost against Liverpool. He's just lost against Man City, quite embarrassingly as well. But I think it's more an embarrassment to go on holiday in this international break, you know, after the fact of everything. So, to answer your question, Andy, no, I don't think it's very nice.
Yeah. Mike, Liam mentioned the winter break. Do you think that's something that should maybe be implemented more in the English game? I know in Spain, in the La Liga, they have quite a few weeks off, I think, between December and January. Well, ours is like flooded. December's mental. There's games on Tuesdays and Thursday nights, and it's hard to keep up with it at times, especially when Amazon's now involved with more games on telly. Do you think there should be a winter break in the Premier League?
I think ideally you would have a winter break because obviously the congestion at the moment is ridiculous. If you're not playing in Europe or the league or a cup, you're playing internationally, and it's just the schedule's 100 miles an hour, isn't it? And then accelerating that just at the time of the year where players will pick up muscle injuries more readily, and maybe it's probably the crunch time of the season where you're starting to feel that fatigue, and then you just throw 4 games in a week onto somebody. It's not really, doesn't make any scientific sense, does it, from the sports point of view? But I think they're held back by the tradition of it all, aren't they? That Boxing Day game and New Year's Day game and all that. So I don't think we'll see it particularly change anytime soon. Obviously, next year the World Cup, which is just another spanner in the works and a ridiculous thing to have arranged.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how things work out with the World Cup. I'm not too sure how the Premier League's going to revolve around it with the break. Obviously, some players are going to come back further than others. If they're just going to go straight ahead and dive right back into it in January, I'm really not sure how it'll work. But we'll move on. We've got a bit of a harder hitting topic now. Jeremy Wisdom was a young lad that played for Manchester City and played in their academy. But after being let go by the club, he unfortunately killed himself, and it's horrible to see. And the main question what we want to ask is, should clubs be doing more to support these players when they let go of it? It's such an early age. Theo, what do you make of it?
Yeah. This afternoon I spent some time reading the official match day program for Arsenal from the game the other day, and there was an article by a guy called Ben Napper. So he's in charge of the loans, and it gave me sort of like an overview of how he manages young players, especially those who are coming, from academy and going into first team. And he did point out that for each player is different, and we treat them in a completely different way. Some of them don't need to go on loan. Some of them go straight into the team. But it's also managing expectations, because not every academy kid is going to make it through. And, I've read some of those comments from the guy from Manchester City saying, this young lad, he's very quiet. He didn't cause anyone problems, but unfortunately he didn't make the grade at Manchester City. And it is difficult. This is not a new thing. This has been happening for a long time. I think over the last couple of years, a lot of former pros have started to come out and say, talk about their experience. And now we've had this tragic situation. But could clubs do more? I think it's quite difficult, because if you have a core group of players, you want to look after them. You then don't really have the time to be putting in facilities for those people who are no longer at the club, because you're not paying them anymore. But at the same time, you sort of have to understand, especially some of these young guys who've been there since they were like yay high, they were kids, and they just have dreams of playing in the Champions League, Premier League. And if that all stops all of a sudden, they're probably going to find it very difficult, and they don't really know anything else. So I do think maybe they should, especially the clubs with the money to do it, put in measures for players to get the support they do need to come out of football, whether it's their education or going to university, or finding another club. I know a few friends who've been in this situation, and I think they've had good links outside of the clubs, but not every player clearly has that, unfortunately.
Yeah, you mentioned how you knew people. I'm very fortunate to know Liam Gibson, who's the left back for Morecambe, and I've seen him through his most of his Newcastle career, and then he's managed to move on, and he got his move to Morecambe at the start of last season and managed to win in the playoff final, and he's thriving in League One now, and it's great to see. Liam, do you think when these young players are going away, because when they're in like the under 14s, under 15s, they'll have a day out of school during the week. Do you think there's more during like that time that they should be getting told, look, we are selling you this dream, but maybe like do explore your other options as well, because the worst might happen?
Yeah, I think maybe clubs could do a little bit more in terms of the educational side of things. For me personally, it's something that I need to educate myself a little bit more on to really understand. But I do feel like quite a lot of sympathy for players who are let go at such a young age, and I know it can affect them mentally. I think there could maybe be like a sort of plan in place for players, like maybe not like a course, but like a sort of program that maybe it's not like a full on release straight away, but like a sort of, I don't really know, I'll be honest. Like maybe just a sort of phased release plan where, they're still getting some sort of money, they're still in football in some sort of way. But like I said, it's something that I feel like I need to educate myself just a little bit more on, because it's, for me personally, it's a bit of a grey area. But it was always sad to hear the stories of what happens to different footballers after they've been released, and how much it does affect them. But I am glad that there are a lot more, I think, outlets and a lot more sources to have people come forward, footballers especially, come forward and talk about how they're feeling, especially for young men and women who get released from clubs at a young age.
I know there's a team in London that exclusively has players that have lost their positions in academy. I can't for the life of us remember what it's actually called. But I mean, with so many clubs that are in London, it's a great thing for them to be there. And I think you're right. I don't think you don't know much about academies unless it's something that you're involved in yourself. We've got another hard hitting topic coming up as well. 1 in 5 women suffer unwanted physical attention at football matches that the Football Supporters Association has found. Mike, what do you think can be done to like address that problem? Because it is a massive problem.
I think this is one of those things that obviously there are steps that you can take within football to combat these issues and try to wipe them out of football. But I think in general, much in the same way as a lot of the other problems we see in football, like homophobia and racism and things like that, it's more of a societal issue that needs to be addressed. And I think football using its voice to actually make a difference and make an impact is definitely one way of trying to address it. But it's so easy for football to try and make this impact, and it's just fall on deaf ears. I think a lot of the people who are doing this sort of thing would be doing it regardless of whether it's a football match or not, and it's it's an opportunity to do that in somewhere where they feel a little bit more bravado and a little bit livelier, and in the same way as if you're on a night out or something, that's another place where they might do it. They're probably less likely to do it in work on a Monday morning, but it's a societal issue, and it's something that obviously needs addressing, and good that it's been highlighted in this in this sort of way.
Yeah, I think that there is sort of this horrible stigma still about women in football, that these old fashioned fans and just not nice people, to be honest, that can't get over. And I mean, Alex Scott is one of my favourite pundits to listen to. I think she's got fantastic game analysis, and I think she's great to listen to. And I mean, another problem that this is happening in the grounds, but on social media as well, Theo. Football Twitter is something I have a massive problem with. These people that have their accounts where they're hiding behind a profile picture of an image, and you see some of the comments that they make on like these female reporters as things whenever they're talking about football. What's your opinions on that, Theo?
Yeah, as you're mentioning, this. I think we just have to say it's unacceptable, obviously. And as Mike was pointing out, that is a society problem. I think, one thing we can do as men is to, call out people, when they do that. Like, for example, I've started taking my sister to games. She's only 16. And God forbid having to experience that if one day we say, oh, you should go on your own. Someone should be able to go out and live their life as freely as they can. So I do think, calling it out and reporting it, it's just as Mike was saying, what we've been seeing with racism and players speaking out about it. It will make, some of those other people think twice who do something like that. And hopefully it probably won't happen overnight, but over time, the next generation of people who go to games won't be doing that kind of thing, so that people don't feel they have to, not go to games anymore, for example.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm still yet to take my sister to a game, but she's such a courageous character. So I have no doubts that if someone was to ever make that sort of remarks, not that I wouldn't have anything to say about it, but I'm sure they'd definitely regret it. Liam, what do you think about this upcoming generation of women in football? I think it's great to see, and it's great to see football being not just an exclusively male thing anymore, like predominantly.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think a movement or a campaign that needs to be really highlighted is Her Game Too. So it's a new campaign that's recently come out in the past few months, and it's really focused on how women can get involved in football, whether it's just going to games or a media sense. But it's gaining quite a lot of traction on social media. It's appeared on BT recently. So I definitely, obviously, take a look at that when you get a spare chance. Just, on the topic itself, I read the article and, it's absolutely shocking to hear. But like Mike, like Theo said, it is a societal issue. you know, I've taken my sister to games before, and you know, it's never something that you think about. You know, I want to take my girlfriend to games whenever I can. It's something that I think for the future now, it's always going to be in the back of my head. You know, that it could happen, and obviously, God forbid it does. But you know, just for like anyone watching, if anything like that does happen, just obviously make sure to report it to someone, because it's such a horrible thing to you know even think about. You know, let alone it happening to someone that you love, someone that you really care for. But yeah, it's just really shocking, mate.
Yeah, it hits hard, but this is why I like how football now football is the biggest sport in the world, let's be honest. And it's been there to use as a tool for so long and just hasn't been used as a way to show, look, we're not going to stand up for this. We're not going to homophobia, racism, this sexism, and these horrendous comments that are getting made to footballers and fans on the daily. It just, we all need to just start to take a big stand and just say, like, look, no more. There needs to be, but these FAs and boards like that need to do more. The clubs need to do more. They need to be banning these people, so they never see. They should really never be able to see football again. That's what I'd. If it was up to me, that's what I'd want to do. But look, before we go, we'll have a bit of a light-hearted thing. We'll want to leave everyone on a smile, but also want to leave everyone having a think just about, you know, if you're going to a game and you think you have made these sorts of comments, just sort yourself out. Don't. But no, I want to do an article for work. I want to talk about the most underrated Premier League players of all time. Mike, who would be your go-to?
Well, with me Everton hat on, I think, although he was sort of roundly appreciated, I genuinely think Leighton Baines was one of the best Premier League left backs for a period of, you know, 5, 6, 7 years. I think he was right up there with one of the best in the, obviously Ashley Cole for longevity, and overall Ashley Cole was probably better throughout his career. But I think there was a period where Leighton Baines was right up there as one of the best left backs in the world.
Yeah, Leighton Baines scored an absolutely blinder of a free kick against us at St James's Park. I think it was when Demba Ba was at Chelsea to have his transfer talks, and Weed went 1-0 up, started chanting, "Are you watching Demba Ba?" And then Leighton Baines smashes in, must have been about 35 yards out. He's absolutely caned it in.
Swerved around, didn't he? He sent Tim Krul the wrong way for a free kick.
Theo, who's your underrated baller? Who's the player you're looking for?
Oh,
yeah.
I could have said Leighton Baines, but you've stolen that one. So, but I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. I'm going to go with my Arsenal hat on, and this was a couple of years ago when I first started going to the Emirates, and this was Alex Song, and he was playing this midfield position. And I remember one game I sat in the upper tier, and he was just taking the ball and pinging it to people accurately, and I was like, wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. And it's almost like he put himself in the shop window and then ended up at Barcelona, and we never heard of him since. What a shame. I think if he had stuck around in the Premier League for a bit longer, he would have done amazing. But yeah, I think he was definitely underrated during his period.
Yeah, I totally forgot about Alex Song. I remember as soon as you mentioned him, I remember him at Barcelona, because I remember that moment where Eric Abidal came back, hadn't he, after being ill?
Yeah.
And is it Carlos Puyol goes to give Abidal the trophy, and Song thinks that he's giving it to him, and so there's just this really awkward moment of Song going, "Oh, actually, it just seems like kind of like creeping back behind everyone." Liam, who are you going for? I want to say.
Go on, who do you think it's going to be?
I'm going to put in.
Go on, go Ben Arthur. I know you.
Yeah, I'm going to go Ben Arthur. Yeah, you're right. I'm going to go Ben Arthur.
As much as I love Ben Arthur, his stint at Hull absolutely ruined it for us.
And who's that fault? Who was manager there?
Well, big up Stevie Bruce. No, I'm going to say most underrated player, James Milner. a player who has got to be one of the most comfortable people on the ball and off the ball as well. God, how old is he now? 36?
He's played more than half his life in the Premier League.
Oh, what a player,
Leeds
honestly.
debut at 16. He's fantastic for us.
Yeah, so, God, he did it at Leeds, he did it at Newcastle, managed to do it at Aston Villa as well, won titles at Man City, won the Champions League with Liverpool, won the Premier League with Liverpool. You know, just consistently good is all you can say about James Milner. He was absolutely fantastic. Well, I say he was, like he's not playing anymore. He still is absolutely fantastic as a player. He's the guy that you look to, I think, in the dressing room now, or maybe just on the bench, because he's getting a bit old now, but he's just one of them players that you look to when you just need that little sort of moment to bring a game up. And I think for Liverpool now, that's him. That's James Milner.
Yeah. Look, I said Ben Arthur. Like he is one of them. I love the whole the streets will never forget, and I'll never forget that absolute rocket he put in at Goodison Park when we first had him on loan. But no, I think I'm going to say Nobby Solano. He was absolutely fine. I used to love watching Solano, and then all these stories that he'd play his trumpet down the phone for Bobby Robson on the night. And look, we'll wrap things up. We've had a bit of a long one, almost near the hour mark. But thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening, and we'll be back at the same time next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Bye.
Cheers.